now we go to the empirical part of the conference. So I'm Ahmad Adha. I'm actually from Indonesia, but I'm currently studying in Hungary. I'm not studying philosophy. I'm studying pragmatics. So I'm a linguist, especially intercultural pragmatics. But the focus of my research is about how the sentence production of different speakers of language, of the untruthful statements of different speakers of language. Today I'm talking about perception of lying by Indonesian, which is actually a replication study of Coleman and Case in 1981. I will start the talk by giving you introduction about the backgrounds of the study, and then the aims, and then literary review, basically about the replication studies of the same study by other researchers, and then the method, and then results of my Indonesian respondents, and in comparison with the other respondents, and discussion, and then end with conclusion. So lying is generally viewed as a wrongful act and should be avoided according to any cultures and religions. Yet we do not object lying to, for example, children about, in Indonesian it's common for the parents to discipline their children to say something like, the police will take you if you do not do something nice, stuff like that. So basically, like in a common understanding, that is a lie. Several research has been conducted to explore how lying is perceived by people in certain cultures. Coleman and Kate proposed it's not actually a research to explore how English cultures or people who speaks English perceive a lie. What they want to know is that how the English speakers perceive the situations or phenomena in which the speaker is lying. So according to them, good lie consists of three elements, which is falsehood, belief, and intention. The results is that the strongest element is belief, followed by intention, and then falsehood. This study has been replicated by other researchers to other speakers of language, such as Arab speakers, Spanish speakers in Ecuador and Spain, and also to Hungarian speakers. And although this study has some methodological problems, I was insisting to keep doing this research just to find out like how Indonesians perceive the phenomenon of lie. So what I wanted to find out is that how the Indonesian word lie consists of the Coleman and Case prototype elements. What is the most important element according to Indonesians? Do Indonesians demonstrate the same interpretation of situation in which lie occurs? So literary review. So as I mentioned before, this study has been replicated by other researchers. For example, Coles. The result from her is that according to the Arabic speakers, the strongest element is belief. So similar to English speaker, belief followed by intention and then falsehood. She also found out that there are two religious-based cultural differences in which lying was permissible. Is that lying to bring reconciliation between wife and husband, and then lying to save one's life. This study has also been replicated by Hardin. She conducted the research in a rural village in Ecuador and found that belief belief is the most important element, but the second determining factor is falsehood instead of intention. Eichelberger did the same research but in the metropolitan city of Madrid, and then found the same results as the Spanish speaker in Ecuador, and the perception of social lies among Ecuadorian and Spanish Spaniards is the same. And finally, Faitai found that intention, so different to the previous researchers, he found out that intention is the main element of lying, and Hungarians have various degrees of lie. So Hungarians have specific language terms when they want to describe a phenomenon of lie. So it's not only one word. So the method is pretty much, I pretty much use the same method as Coleman and Kay and the previous researchers. However, I changed the names and then situation in the questionnaire to be culturally and linguistically appropriate to my Indonesian respondents. So a questionnaire consisting stories based on possible combination of the three elements. For example, story 1 and is a complete lie in which the proposition is false, and then speaker believes that proposition is false, and then a speaker intends to deceive. While story 2 is none of them is present. None of the elements is present in the combination of the three elements. So story 1, for example, Mail has eaten the cake Yuli was intending to serve the company. Yuli asks Mail, "Did you eat the cake?" Mail says, "No." Did Mail lie? Like, of course, like when I have to respond this question, is that I would pretty much believe that it is a lie, because the story 1 and then story 2 were constructed to be control questions in which the respondents should answer that story 1 is a lie and then story 2 is not a lie. Otherwise, respondent will be discarded from the analysis of the data. So what the respondent had to do is that they had to make a judgment whether the actor in the situation was lying or not, and then whether they are sure about the certainty if other speaker would agree with the choice that they just circled. So the respondents were also given a chance to give comments about their choices, but then these comments were not like taken into consideration of the analysis. They was just give me ideas like the reason or the backgrounds why they were choosing what they chose. And then following the Coleman and Case method, if the respondent was sure that if the actor in the situation was lying, then the score would be 7. But if they are fairly sure that it was a lie, it will be 6, and then so on. So if the story has 7th a point, it means that the story has a strong lie. Otherwise, if the story has like a score 1 point, it means it is not a lie. So the questionnaire was circulated online, and then 120 native speakers of Indonesian took part. But there were 18 invalid questionnaires because they were not responding to question number 1 and then question number 2 correctly. Some of them, when I checked the comments, they were pretty much like being creative. For example, when they responded story 1 here, respondents were like commenting that Mail might be Yuli's company, so he had the right to eat the cake. So they were like making assumption from the story. And then the gender is almost equal. The age, 95% are above 20 years old, with 86% are currently studying in higher education, and then at least 90% of the respondents are bilingual or multilingual. Okay, as we can see the results here, story number 1, the mean score is 9.89. It's not really 7, and then story number 2 is 1.28, and then it's not really 1. So the reasons why, like I said before, that some of the respondents were making assumption about the stories. And then if we see the results, when I put the results in the order, of course story number 1 received the highest score, and then followed by story number 5, 3, and then 7. What it means that the similarity between story number 5, 3, and 7 is that those stories contains falsehood. It means that it makes me draw a conclusion that the Indonesian perceive when they judge a situation whether it is lying or not, they see the falsehood first. And then if we see the story that contains belief only and intention only, story with intention only has the highest score, which is around 3.22. And then the story with belief only actually like almost close to a non-lie. So if I want to put the order of the element, falsehood comes first, followed by intention and then belief. And then if I make the comparison between the result between Indonesian and then to the other researchers, that if you see the other researchers, there are such a similar pattern. However, the result from Indonesian respondent is like it's totally different. It forms a zigzag here. So so I want to talk about like how story number 3, 4, and then 7 and 8 received different results compared to previous results. Let's see story number 3 here. So this story was about Prasetyo, who believes that he has to pass a cookie store to get the video game kiosk, but then he was wrong that because the cookie store has moved. And then when he was about to going out, he was saying to his mother that I'm passing by the candy store. Did Prasetyo lies? According to Indonesians, Prasetyo was lying in this situation because the main goal or the main intention of his utterance is to go to the video game kiosk, not just passing by the candy store. This result is actually like the highest among previous research. Now let's see a story 4 about Rina, who has a math test, but she was not feeling like going to school because she didn't study for the math test, and then she said to her mother that she was sick, and then apparently like turning out Rina was sick. The result for this one is quite low compared to previous research, which according to Indonesian, it's kind of blurred whether it is not a lie or not. According to the comments that my respondent made, that when you are telling something, even though if it is not true, but if it turns out to be true, it is a lie. So Indonesian make judgment not at the time of utterance, not at the time of making the utterance, but the whole situation. So when you are saying that I'm sick and then in the end you are sick, then it is not a lie. So a false statement turning out to be true is not a lie for Indonesian. This is pretty much similar to story 8, in which Ray has got a ticket and then show it to his boss, but then his boss say, if you don't come to work, you better have a better excuse than watching a football match. And then he was calling, and then apparently like turning out that he was sick. This result is close to not a lie according to Indonesians. Majority of the respondents understand that Ray called not because he wanted to watch a football game. So again, Indonesian consider the results of the utterance when they want to make a judgment whether someone is lying or not. And then now let's go to story 7, in which maybe I would assume you might respond this as a mistake instead of a lie. So the nurse read the charts, but then she was kind of making a mistake by informing the doctor that the patient had to be on a different type of surgery. And then for Indonesian, it's almost like a Cadorian Spanish. The results, the nurse here was kind of lie. It's actually like a very a strong lie. Many of the respondents say that the statement that is not based on real facts should be considered as a lie. And then some of them commented that the nurse pretended to know the thing. That is why they considered the nurse as a liar. So lying is, in the standard view, it is a dishonest assertion where lying does not require the assertion to be objectively false. However, Indonesian judge this honest assertion turning out to be true as not a lie. In fact, Indonesian seems to disregard about knowledge or belief states like the Mayan Mopan people in Belize. So when I check the comments that my respondents made, the two most common comments is about the false statements and the intention. None of them talk about belief in the of the speaker in the situation. Indonesians also rely on a mismatch between a proposition uttered and reality. So it is surprising when on the way here, when I checked the Indonesian dictionary of the definition of lie, it is written that lie is if something is not accordance with the actual with the actual situation. So it is pretty much matched to the response that my respondents made. So these results are consistent with Turi and Turi's argument that lying requires something false. So in conclusion, for Indonesians, the order of the Coleman and case element in lying is most likely factual, intention, and belief. The reason why I put belief in the bracket is because, as I said before, it's it was not regarded by the respondents. It was not even talked about by the respondents. Maybe it is there, or maybe it is the sub element of factual. So it needs more research to find out whether Indonesian could regard belief as the element of lying. So these are the references. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. And are there any questions? Yes.
So this is really interesting work. It fascinates me. I want to just check something from what you said when you said you checked up on the dictionary definition. I mean, if all these tests or questionnaires are being given to groups speaking different languages, are you testing what that word or term means in that language? Because you could say what you tested here was what falsehood means in the language, not what lies mean in the language. And you could go to another country or another language, and you're testing what in that language is a term used for lie but not used for falsehood. And that's what you tested and got results. So in other words, all those results could be, go back to the country that tested for lie and now retested for falsehood, and they would track. So, you couldn't necessarily say this is a comparison of what people judge are the elements of a lie. You can't say that yet. You've got, this is what people judge to be the components of a certain word or term, and that word or term's meaning, right, could be a different meaning to what was tested in the next country. So couldn't I say that the anomaly that you have with this group is that you're testing for a different meaning? You're testing for a meaning of falsehood, and you got what you would expect to get if you tested for what falsehood means to English speakers. Just as an example, that's too crude, but you might imagine that if you tested English speakers about what falsehoods are, or something like, maybe the falsehood isn't enough, but false statements or something, you would track what you got, and so the two countries would be in alignment. But if you tested for lie in English speakers and for what translates as falsehood for the other language speakers, you're not going to be able to compare those two results because they're testing for two different things.
Yeah, in this research, what I was asking the respondent is that whether the actor in this situation was lying or not. So it's not really about like whether the speaker was making a false statement or not.
How do you know that you were asking them the question? How do you know you're asking them the question that was the speaker lying if the translation of lying can be uttering a falsehood?
Sorry.
I mean, what about if your quiz or your questionnaire, the question that you're asking them by a translation of the words used could be translated as uttering a falsehood? That could have been what you tested. And if you tested that, you got the right results. Quote unquote, the right results. But you got results that were consistent with what you would believe to be the results of uttering a falsehood by some other cultures where there was a distinction between falsehoods and lies.
I see the point. Okay. Yeah, this is the thing that before I conducted this research, I was like, there were so many, there were like arguments against this research, the Coleman and case research, and about the methodological problems of this research. The reason why I keep insisting doing that because I didn't get any research on the perception of lying by Indonesians, so I put the methodological problem aside and then still did this research.
So just quick question, because I got lost a bit as you presented the scenarios. You said that there was basically no effect of belief on the participants. So I was just wondering, can you quickly summarize the story in which you have, I suppose there will be a story in which there is a false belief, in which the speaker believes that what they are saying is false, but it's actually true and they have no intention to deceive, I guess. So the one in which only insincerity is in place and the other conditions aren't satisfied.
This one?
Well, I don't know, because in that case,
This one is belief and intention.
she does have an intention to deceive, though.
Yeah.
Is there a case without?
This one. It's just belief.
Right. Oh.
Yeah.
Is it just belief?
Yes, that's the thing. Like this, this story. This is the one of the.
Right, it's a problem you mentioned before.
Yeah. This
Okay,
story
okay.
has a methodological problem because is it really belief or there is intention in that?
Right. The idea is that somehow it could not be deceptive because it's already common ground between them. That you will
I think the reason why the Coleman and Kate put this without intention is because this sentence, the sentence on the day of the game, Ray calls in, I cannot come to work today because I'm sick, ironically, it is because of this sentence, they categorize it as stories without intention. Even though, like for me, yes, this is a story with intention because, like, he wanted to create a false statement that he was sick.
Yeah, no, I see. It's very clear. Can I just ask a follow-up related to which word did you use to ask the question? So, like, which one is the word in Indonesian that you employed in the questionnaire?
You mean this one?
Yes. All right. So you would say it's definitely what we call lying.
Yeah.
All right, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the great talk, man. I'd appreciate if you'd send this to my email.
Okay.
I was puzzled actually, and my question is similar to what James says. So you know the case where the guy's walking past the candy store. Can we see it again?
Yeah, sure.
So that case seems strange to me. Look, so he's going to the video kiosk, right?
Yeah.
And he needs to pass by the cookie store, but the cookie store has been moved.
Mhm.
So how is he walking past the cookie store on his way to the game store if the cookie store has been moved? As he is going out the door intending to go to the kiosk, his mother asks him where he is going. He says, I'm going by the cookie store, by the candy store. If the candy store has been moved, he cannot go by the candy store.
Ah,
So it's
sorry,
a
sorry.
lie. It's not a...
There is a
perhaps
mistake
true.
here. It's the candy store should be cookie store here.
But the cookie store has been moved. I understood that
Yeah.
this is an omission, but the cookie store has been moved. So why didn't they judge this to be a lie? Can we see
So-
the results again?
Okay.
See, many people didn't judge it to be a lie,
Mhm.
but even if he was on this route where the cookie store used to be, the cookie store is not there anymore.
Mhm.
So it's both false and believed by him to be false. So why isn't he lying? Is he walking past the cookie store far away from the video game store on his way to the video game store? Where is he?
So okay, now when I explain what is happening here, so the guy wanna go to the video game kiosk. To go to the video game, he has to pass by the cookie store. But then he doesn't know that the cookie store has already moved.
Okay.
All right, so there is no belief there. Like the element of belief is not present because he has a false belief. He thought the cookie store was still there, but it's not there anymore.
Okay. So when he says to his mother, I'm going by the cookie store, he is still lying.
He's still lying.
Oh, so you think that he's going to think that the cookie store is over there?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't get the
It's
case.
the fact development, right?
Yeah,
So
man.
it's a mistake, yeah.
See, I shouldn't be doing philosophy, I can't get even the basic basics. But anyway, the smart thing that I wanted to say, I'm just going to follow up on James. Look, so I also done some experimental studies, still haven't finished. When we frame these questions, we need to be really careful what
Yeah.
we're tracking for. People have a very broad conception of lying. If you just Google famous lies, you're gonna get a bunch of stuff like Trojan horse, forgeries, verbal, non-verbal stuff. They're gonna see that as lies. There's this broad category of lies, which is misleading representation. So in cases in which you cannot leave a misleading representation, some people, in my study it's 24% in 4 different experiments, would not classify this as a lie.
Mhm.
So maybe what's going on in your cases, but I need to think about this, because I really like it actually. I really like the experiment, and I think that this might not be truth tracking experiment, but actually what can be legitimately asserted. But I need to think about it. It's a very interesting experiment. So maybe you could just think about whether the responses were more like, did the speaker leave a misleading impression or not? Because if what you say is true, unbeknownst to you, you cannot leave a misleading impression. You can try to do that, but you'll fail to do it. So that could be one of the explanations. Thanks a lot again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We got one short question. No, we will continue to the next topic. So thank you again, and thanks for